Deepwater Horizon is a disaster film based on a true story set on the offshore drilling oil rig named Deepwater Horizon, on which an explosion irreparably damaged and sunk the rig, releasing thousands of liters of petroleum into the Gulf of Mexico, creating the worst ever oil spill disaster in history, and is considered one of the world's largest man-made disasters in general. The film stars Mark Wahlberg as an electronics technician, Kurt Russell as his boss, and John Malkovich as the BP representative who fatally underestimates the dangers involved in working on the rig. I'm pretty much a huge fan of the biographical disaster film, like The Impossible, Everest, Captain Phillips. Even though Captain Phillips is more of a survival thriller, it's still a very similar movie to these other films I mentioned. And I probably hold them in higher regard than I should. That's probably because every time a tragedy or a disaster like this happens, I can't help but feel deeply saddened and emotionally charged. I can't help but feel a sympathy for the victims and a fascination for the stories of the survivors, the ones who lived to tell their tale. Everest was one of my favorite films of last year, even though I have to admit it's not that great. I mean, it shouldn't really appear on anyone's top 10 list. But the acting, the technical prowess, the scope of the whole thing really impressed me. Even though it's a movie that does manipulate your emotions somewhat, does really try to be this very sentimental story, this kind of tearjerker, and is somewhat cliched. Deepwater Horizon, just like Everest, isn't really trying to do anything new here. But I definitely think that it is one of the best, if not the best film out of this bunch to come out at least like in the last 5 or 6 years. I really appreciated how the film mostly tried to avoid the trappings and the cliches a film like this usually comes hand in hand with. But I say mostly because this film really wants you to know that it stars Mark Wahlberg. Just look at the poster, for example. The fucker's head is at least 5 times bigger than the rig itself. And I don't think that's accidental at all. Now, I might be talking out of my ass here, I haven't researched this at all, but Mark Wahlberg really seems to be a very well-known actor. He's in a lot of movies that probably make a lot of money, so he's probably a pretty bankable actor, a big name. And having such a big name attached to your movie, a movie that is still, at the end of the day, a big-budgeted, spectacle-driven film that really wants to be a crowd pleaser, having his name attached to it probably ensures that you're going to have a bigger box office success than you would otherwise if you didn't have him in your film. Of course, which also means that your film is probably going to have some pretty stereotypical subplots seep in at least from time to time. But I'm glad the filmmakers kind of seemed to try to keep that at a minimum, because of course Mark Wahlberg's character is the good-looking, muscle-bound hero who has a family, a wife and a daughter, with whom we see him interact in the beginning of the film before he sets out on this 3-week work period on the rig. Of course, this is so we can build some emotional attachment towards him, so that we can feel later on when he is in danger that the stakes are higher, and so that we can cheer for our hero because we can get the sense that we know him a little bit better. Yay. And I think I kind of got the same sense that the director felt the same way, because it appeared that he just wanted to gloss over this aspect of the story as quickly as possible. Because after like the first 5 or 10 minutes of the film, everybody is already on the rig and there is no turning back. The characterizations in the film from then on are pretty slim to almost non-existent. I mean, every character is basically a type. Kurt Russell is the good guy boss man, the honorable captain with a leave no man behind attitude, or mentality, I would say. John Malkovich, the delightfully douchey John Malkovich, just the way I like him, is like a big boss company guy who doesn't really care much for human life and basically just wants to get the job done, even though he himself doesn't really know anything about the task at hand, etc, etc. And the rest of the characters, like the real side characters, are even more paper thin. Now, it might sound like I'm complaining, but it's actually the opposite. I think the film is really smart because it doesn't waste time on pointless characterization to force emotional attachment. Now, like the first hour or so of this film is spent on building suspense by explaining the technical aspects of how this rig operates, what does it do, and why would it be dangerous to resume this operation. And to be honest, I didn't really understand much of it, and especially now, since some time has passed since I seen the film, I don't really remember understanding anything of it. But again, sounds like I'm complaining, but no, I'm not. I mean, not understanding something so major and for such a long time when watching a film usually makes the experience pretty unpleasant. But here, it was fine, actually. It seemed very informative, if that makes any sense. And I really appreciated that the film spent time on explaining a lot of things that many of its audience members probably didn't understand. I mean, if you're not an engineer or a technician, like, probably most of it went by you as well. But like I said, said, I really didn't mind because this film is so well put together. It flows so well that it puts you on the edge of your seat way before the disaster happens. The camera work seemed very similar to the camera work in Captain Phillips, again, and that's an absolute compliment. It's this very shaky, very handheld, almost has like a documentary feel to it type of camera work. And the editing is very hectic. They are constantly cutting from one person to the other during conversations, but they are not completely respecting or not completely following like the reverse shot technique. They are not completely like trying to match the eye lines, you know what I mean? Where you're like cutting from one person to the other, so you can get the sense that they are looking at each other. Here, this is very like off, it's very disorientating, and it should be disorientating. Now, of course, this isn't a horror film, but by fucking Jove, is this a frightening experience. Everything is burning around you. Everything is exploding around you. And you don't even get the sense that there is anywhere to run because you're surrounded by the fucking ocean. Honestly, I can't even imagine how some of the people managed to keep their cool as they did in this situation right here. The deaths, of which they were 11 in real life, are extremely unceremonious. I think we usually get to see people die mostly from a distance, and I was really surprised to see that none of our main characters die. I mean, of course they get injured pretty badly, some of them, but still, for a very bleak film like this, because of this, I still felt like it ended on somewhat of a high note, and of course I would recommend Deepwater Horizon if you're a fan of disaster films. If you're not, no, you will probably not find anything to like about it, honestly. But it's a very well put together film, it's a very gripping film, it's a very thrilling film, and I don't know what else is to say about it. Thanks for watching my review, as always, and I will see you later with other reviews. Until then, take care folks, and goodbye.